So in this video, I want to talk about something which is a little bit confusing because I just made a video called Always Paint Your Masterpiece. And the title of this video is Start Small. So the key point here is that when you're very first starting to paint, and this is what I tell to my students, when I have students that come in and they're struggling or they're trying to learn my method, which is the 4 workflows that I talk about. And you can find all 4 of those workflows in the description of this video. You can go learn those. But in this video, what I want to talk about is starting small, and meaning that if I see that I have a student that's having trouble, or just really in general, I try to get my students to focus on one small little thing to begin with. And the reason I do that is because if they're going to work on something really small, they're much more likely to take their time. They're much more likely to check all their colors, and they're much more likely to have success. And once you paint one small little thing, then you have that confidence, you know you can do it. If you later on speed up and start taking shortcuts and you fail, with your painting, you can always go back and look at what you did in the beginning and say, okay, back to the basics, back to going slow, back to focusing on one little part of the painting at a time. Now, in general, what I tell my students is speed comes later. So I'm always telling my students, go really slow. The slower you go, the better. And I even tell them, if they're taking my 6-day class, I say, don't even think about trying to finish the painting. Now, you may well finish the painting, but you never want to have that focus of, I've got to, hurry up, I've got to, get this done, because that's where you start taking shortcuts. That's where you start not doing the method to the letter. So in the beginning, and especially I'm speaking to people who have never done my method before and you're trying to learn it for the first time, I say start small, meaning let's take a look at this big complicated still life here. Beautiful still life, this could be a masterpiece still life when it's done. But if you try to think about painting this entire thing, especially if it's your first painting using my method, it's going to be overwhelming, and you're very likely to get bogged down and start taking shortcuts and not doing it the way you should do it. But on the other hand, if you zoom in right on this one tomato and I tell you the only thing I want you to do is to paint this one tomato, but you have to do the workflow and do the process exactly step by step, not taking any shortcuts, but doing everything exactly to the letter according to the method. Now, if you do that and you're only painting a tomato, you're much more likely to have success. And then once you finish that first thing, this little tomato, then you go on and you do another little object, and then another object, and then another object, and to just take it like one little step at a time. And never, especially on your first painting, never thinking about how much time it's going to take you or how much work's involved or anything else, because you're really just trying to learn the method. So start small, start with something little, completely finish whatever it is. In this case, completely finish the tomato before going on and trying to do the rest of the painting. Now, this is a good advice in general. I remember hearing a story. I think my mother told me the story about a guy who escaped from a concentration camp during World War II, and he had to make it to the border of whatever country it was to escape Germany. And instead of thinking about that he had to go 50 miles and he was already on the verge of starvation and barely able to survive, and that would have been too much for him. So what he did was he said, I'm just going to make it to the next telephone pole. And that's all he thought about. And then once he arrived at the next telephone pole, he said, okay, now my goal is to make it to the next telephone pole. So it was one little step at a time. So you can use that same logic when you're doing a painting. Start with something small. Say, I'm just going to paint this tomato, and that's all I'm going to think about. And once I succeed with this little tomato, I'll start on the next tomato or the artichoke or whatever it is. So that's, especially if you're having trouble or you're failing with my method, you know, and this is what I do with my students who are having trouble. I say, look, let's just stop right here, and we're going to paint this one little area, but we're going to do it perfect. We're going to check all of our colors. We're not going to blend until we get the canvas covered with paint, etc., etc. All right, I hope this is helpful. Thank you guys for watching. Again, we are just this close to releasing our purple at Geneva Fine Art. So go to genevafineart.com and check out you know, all of our paint. We make the best paint in the world, I believe. It has the highest pigment load. It's very slow drying, which is good if you're trying to pre-mix your colors. It has no toxic fumes whatsoever, and it's ready to use right out of the tube. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.